We are, first let me start by introducing myself. My name is Shannon. My pronouns are they, she, and I am currently here in Toronto on Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation land. And tonight we have a restorative practice. For tonight's practice, we're going to be focusing on rest, but also on reconnecting with our bodies. I know my experience, and for a lot of us who are in larger bodies or otherwise marginalized bodies, are sometimes told that there's something wrong with our bodies. And so we tend to distance ourselves from them. And I know for me, I definitely had become very disconnected from my body. And yoga was one of those things that helped me reconnect, helped me see my body as more than just a container and as an extension of myself again. And so that's the kind of reflection I'm going to invite in this practice. If you have other things going on, if you have something else you would rather work on in this practice, please feel free. But for our grounding, we can come into either a comfortable seated position or reclined position. And I just want to point out, if you like to kind of lean back but aren't comfortable being completely reclined, we also have the option of using our bolster and our blocks. So here I have one block on the high position, one on the low position, and my bolster kind of leaning against it to make a ramp. This is another option that we can practice a comfortable shavasana without coming all the way down to the ground. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that's available to them. If you don't have blocks or a bolster, you can also have 2 throw pillows and your bed pillows lying in this way. It'll be a lower ramp, but it still helps kind of keep us upright, especially if we're recovering from any respiratory things. This can be really helpful. So we can come into whatever position is comfortable for us. I'll give everybody a moment to find that position. I'm going to stay seated because it's easier for you all to hear me from this position. And once we find that position for ourselves, maybe taking a few deep breaths in through the nose if that's comfortable for us, out through the mouth. Maybe on our exhale, releasing with a sigh or vocalization. Letting go of the day, the week, the month so far. We'll find our natural breath. Whatever that looks like for us. That might be in through the nose, out through the nose, or in through the mouth, out through the mouth. Any combination thereof. If we like, we can start to close the eyes if that's comfortable, or maybe have a soft gaze. And we'll begin to notice the areas that are making contact with the floor beneath us. So whether that's the back, the backs of the legs, the sides of the legs, wherever that is, we'll just take a moment and notice the sensation in this space. Do we notice a difference in temperature, a difference in pressure? We might not notice anything at all. And we'll begin to ground down through these spaces, down through the earth, all the way down, allowing ourselves to feel the support of the earth beneath us. The unconditional support that it provides. It doesn't care if we've washed our hair today, if we're even wearing pants. It's just always there for us. And from this place of stability and security, we can start to build upward. So allowing ourselves to be heavy, allowing ourselves to rest down. And from that space, being able to maybe find a bit of length through the spine. Being able to feel all of the support that we need to let the muscles release and be soft. We can allow our awareness to expand out from these spaces into the rest of the body, noticing any sensations that come up for us. So maybe we notice a bit of tightness, or maybe we notice a real need to move or stretch. But we'll make note of those spaces so that we can be as kind to our bodies as possible today. When we're ready, we can begin to expand our awareness into the breath, noticing our inhale and exhale. If we choose, maybe following the passage of air into the body and out. Maybe noticing the movement associated with the breath. Do we feel it more through the shoulders, through the ribs, through the heart space? On our next inhale, maybe taking a deep breath that goes all the way down to the toes, out to the fingertips. And on the exhale, letting go. Letting go of everything we don't need in this moment. Making space to breathe and to be throughout our practice today. If we like, we can invite an intention into our practice. It could be looking for rest, to be in the moment, to reconnect with our bodies, or anything that comes to mind for you. And we'll hold that intention close to our heart and revisit it throughout our practice today. When we're ready, we can start to bring a little bit of movement into the fingers and toes, into the head and neck. Any rocking movements or stretches that we need here. And when we're ready, maybe slowly beginning to blink the eyes open. If we're reclined, maybe rolling on to the right or left side and making our way up to seated. For our first restorative asana today, we're going to be coming into child's pose. And so for child's pose, I have a few different variations for us depending on how we're feeling today. So the first variation is using our ramp that I discussed earlier with our blocks. And I'm going to grab a blanket for a little extra cushioning beneath the legs. If this seems a little high, the other options would be to place the bolster or pillows directly on the ground. Or we can take our two blocks and put them one in front and one behind each other on the lowest settings to create a bit of a table, and place our bolster on top of that table. So I'm going to use one blanket on the ground here at the base of my ramp. And this is just really to help kind of leave a little bit more cushion for the tops of my legs here as they come against the ground and my knees. We can also have a blanket around our shoulders, kind of like a cape if we're chilly. I'm a little warm, so I'm going to skip that part myself today. But feel free to do that if you like. So I'm going to eventually approach my bolster, whether it's all the way on the ground or over here on this ramp. And I have my knees kind of spread apart on either side, my feet near touching or pointing towards each other if that's comfortable. And then I'm going to slowly begin to come down onto the ground. So my hands are on either side. And I'm going to rest my body against the bolster. I can bring my hands around like a hug, or I can bring them down by my sides if I like. Or I can place them on top and rest my head on top of my hands as well. Anything that feels comfortable for us today. And don't feel like we have to get the bum down near the heels. For me, that just doesn't happen. I have larger thighs, larger calves. I need lots of space, so this is how I make it. So once we find our position, we can be resting on one cheek, or if we're comfortable face down, we can do that as well. And we'll take a few deep breaths here. Again, maybe in through the nose and out through the mouth if that's comfortable for us. Allowing ourselves to release against the props so that we're supported and the other parts of the body can start to relax and let go. We'll be here for about 3 minutes. At the halfway mark, I'll let us know, so we have the option of turning the head. We'll just continue to breathe as we release down. If we like, we can turn the head, find a little bit of balance through the neck. And we'll be here for about another minute. When we're ready to exit, we can bring the hands beneath the shoulders, slowly pressing up, coming maybe back through tabletop, and then coming down to a seated position. For our next posture, we'll be coming into a supported spinal twist. So for that, we again have a few options for our bolster. I like to have mine in the ramp position as well, but if you are more comfortable, you can also have it directly against the ground. Or if you need just a little bit more height, you can place it on top of the blocks, with the blocks lying flat to make a little bit higher table. This works really well for me. Again, we can leave our blanket down for a little bit of cushion through the hip, or we can also have a blanket around our shoulders or over our legs if we'd like to stay a little bit warmer. So I'm going to sit right next to my ramp with I'm going to start on my left side, or I'm sorry, my right side, but you can start on whichever side makes more sense for you. So I'm kind of here in Baddha Konasana to start, with my feet together and knees apart. So I'm going to bring my right hand down behind my bolster. And I have a few different options. So as I come over towards my side, I'm going to fold my leg behind me. This is how I'm more comfortable. If you like, though, you can also have your legs wide apart, like spread out, not folded, for this as well. So what I'm going to do once I find what position I like with my legs, at least to start, is I'm going to intend my chest in the direction of my bolster. So I'm going to come into a twist. So I like to lift my belly up onto my leg to make a bit more space near the hip joint. And then I'm going to intend the heart space towards the bolster or pillows. Now, some of us might not have the mobility to come forward. Don't worry. We can come onto our side as well and then shift the shoulder forward just to bring ourselves into a little bit of a twist. So whatever way is most comfortable for you, that's how we're going to come down. And once we find our position, I'm actually going to add my my blanket as a pillow up at the top just because I need a little bit more space today. We'll take a moment and notice how we're feeling. So I'm down on my right forearm behind me, resting against my bolster. If we need to make any tweaks to the legs, maybe if we decided, oh, maybe I do want them straightened or folded, we can do that now. I'm going to rest my hand on the ground in front of my mat, my left hand. And I'm just going to take a few deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Doing my best on my exhale to release, to relax into the posture. An important thing to note with our restorative postures is that we're not trying to force ourselves into any particular position, so much as set ourselves up in a way that gravity will gently and slowly assist us coming deeper into the position when we're ready. So doing our best to use the support of the prop so that we can relax, we can begin to let go, and then letting gravity pull us deeper into our twist when we're ready. We're going to be on this side for about 4 more minutes. If we like, we can also take the opportunity to kind of notice where we're feeling sensation through the body. And if we like, we can use a breath technique to help relax anywhere that feels tight. So on our inhale, visualizing air flooding into those spaces that feel tight, pulling apart all the muscle fibers. And on our exhale, releasing air from that space, feeling it drain away, taking all the tension, all the stress with it as it goes, leaving behind smooth, relaxed muscle fiber. When we're ready, we can slowly begin to come back to the breath. To exit, I'm going to slowly begin to press myself upward. And we're going to switch to the opposite side. So we can do that however we're most comfortable. I like to kind of push forward and roll, but if you'd rather kind of get up and reposition yourself, feel free to do that as well. So I'm going to bring my opposite thigh near the base of my bolster. I'm going to bring my left hand this time down behind my bolster. Bring the belly up onto the leg. Begin to open the heart space towards the bolster and come down. Again, so we can reposition our legs and arms however we need. And don't feel that you have to do the exact same thing on this side that we did on the other. We tend to be asymmetric in our mobility. So we want to honor what we need on this side of our body. Remembering we have our breath technique to help us relax muscles. And we can do our best to begin to release and let ourselves be heavy against the props. We'll be here for 4 more minutes. When we're ready, we can begin to come back to the breath, noticing our inhale and exhale. We can begin to press up from seated. Up to seated. And we can feel free to take any little movements here that feel good, or anything that we might have loosened up a bit that maybe feels like it needs a little bit of a stretch. And next, we'll be coming into our reclined bound angle. So again, a few options, one of which is our same setup. This is helpful for a lot of folks if they don't necessarily like or feel comfortable with back bend through the low back. So if we like, we can bring our bum right to the base and rest backward. We can use a blanket on the top if we like, or we can use it through the lower body. Other options, we can move our blocks to the side and place our bolster directly against the ground as well. We have the option again of using our our blanket as a pillow, or we can use it to support our knees, which I will demo here. So regardless of how we're using our bolster or pillows, we can sit with our bum right up against the base to start. If we would like to have support beneath the knees, we can roll on one of our blankets into a long cylinder and place that beneath the knees. So we can bring the soles of the feet together, knees apart. If this feels comfortable, great. If it is not comfortable and we are feeling a bit of pulling through the inner line of the legs, we might need our blocks rather than just the blanket beneath the knees. One on either side to prop the knees up a little bit more. That can be helpful. Or we can straighten the legs if it's too intense, regardless, through the inner or outer line of the legs. We can leave the legs straight. We'll begin to recline, slowly leaning backwards against our ramp or against our bolster. We want to make sure that our low back feels supported, so if we need to make any adjustments, we can do that. For our arms, we can have them either down to the sides, as if we were in Shavasana. We can have them palms down or palms up. We also have the option of bringing them into a T shape. This is as far as I would go if I was using the ramp, because this is our arms are still supported here. But if we are directly against the ground, we can bring the hands overhead, letting the elbows rest on the ground beside us for a much more intense heart opener. And remember, if we come into one position and later on decide that it maybe is a little too intense, or if it just doesn't start to feel good anymore, we can make any adjustments we need throughout. So we'll take a few deep breaths here, again, maybe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Allowing ourselves to fully rest against the supports so that we can start to release. We have our breath technique if we notice anywhere that feels especially tight. Or if we like, we can slowly spend time maybe noticing the different areas of the body and how they feel. Or if we like, we can connect with our breath, noticing our inhales and exhales. Whatever feels good for us and whatever supports the intention that we may have made at the beginning of practice. We'll be here for the next 5 minutes. Our inhales and exhales. Whatever feels good for us and whatever supports the intention that we may have made at the beginning of practice. We'll be here for the next 5 minutes. We'll slowly begin to come back to the breath. Noticing our inhale and exhale. If we like, we can straighten the legs. Maybe take any movement through the hips that feel good here. Maybe flexing the toes upward, pointing them. Any little movements that feel good. And when we're ready, maybe gently rolling off. If we're reclined against the ground, rolling off the props onto our side. If we're using our ramp, we can gently press ourselves upward. Once we're ready, we can press up from the ground as well. So from here, we're going to come into our legs up the wall options. So first option is to lay against the wall, bringing our legs up, which I can demo here. I like to have a blanket handy because no matter how warm I am, when I put my legs up, they always get cold. So I'd like to have it handy so I can cover my feet. The other option we have is to, the same way I'm going to demo coming into legs up the wall, placing our legs up on a chair or bed, couch, anything we have handy. The other option we have is creating our ramp again and using the ramp to rest our legs upward as well. And if none of these options feel good, as soon as I demo legs up the wall, I'll come out and demo a last option as well. So just so we all have options. Some people like to have a blanket on the ground on top of our mat to support the upper body. So if you like that, you might want to have that spread out next to you. There are lots of different ways that we can come into this, but my favorite is to sit with my back against the wall or the chair or the couch, and then slowly start to rest onto my side, and then swing the legs up against the wall. And as I mentioned, if you have your blanket handy, you can kind of lift that and wrap that around your feet, which I can demo here. And then we can also kind of wrap the blanket around our legs to help hold the legs together if we like. Now, don't feel like our bum has to be pressed directly against the wall. That sometimes can lead us into a really sharp right angle from the hips to the legs. And that can sometimes kind of cut off circulation. So I like to scoot a little bit further back from the wall, so I have more space around my hips and belly, and I might pull my belly away from my hips to create just a little bit more space there. Our arms can be out to our sides, in cactus, anything that feels comfortable. And if we're putting our legs against a bed or a couch or a chair, they will most likely be bent, and that is perfect as well. If none of these options sound good to you, I'd like to offer constructive rest. For constructive rest, we would lie directly on the ground or the mat. With our feet on the ground, knees raised. Some folks like to have a block between their knees. I just like to angle my knees towards each other. And again, we can also use a blanket around the legs to help hold the legs together. And for the upper body, we have the same options. Arms out to the sides, arms through cactus. Anything that feels good here. So once we find our position, we'll again start with a few deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, allowing ourselves to release down, grounding down through those areas, making contact with the floor, and allowing ourselves to find a bit of rest here. If we need a break and need to bend the knees, bring the legs down the wall, we can feel free to do that and bring them back up when we're ready. We'll be here for the next 5 minutes or so. When we're ready, we'll slowly begin to come back to the breath, noticing our inhale and exhale. If we like, we can bring a bit of movement into the hands and the legs. Maybe slowly beginning to bring the feet down the wall, either into a Baddha Konasana position with our feet together and our knees apart, or we can place our feet against the wall and maybe rock from side to side. Anything that feels good here. And whenever we're ready, we can gently roll onto our right or left side. We'll take a moment here. And whenever we're ready, slowly begin to make our way up to seated so that we can get ourselves positioned for our final resting position. We have the option of Shavasana. We can also be seated for our meditation if we like. For Shavasana, we can come into a reclined position with maybe a bolster beneath our knees. Or if we prefer, we can use our ramp option. If there is another restorative position that you would prefer, you can feel free to come into that as well. But once we find our position, we'll revisit our grounding, taking a few moments to allow ourselves to be heavy, to connect down through the mat, through the props, all the way down to the earth, allowing ourselves to be completely supported by the earth beneath us. Maybe noticing our inhales and exhales. And today we have a relaxing body scan. So as we move through the different portions of the body, we'll notice what's happening in these areas, what we're feeling. And we'll do our best to release and relax those areas before moving on to the next. I like to use a visualization to assist in this. And so I'll be offering that as well. So again, we'll take a few moments, breathing in through the nose, out through the mouth, letting ourselves be heavy. Noticing if we're holding tension in the face. Tension through the top of the head, the crown of the head, maybe down along the back of the head. I like to visualize a warm light flowing down from above me. And wherever that light touches, it begins to relax and release the muscles. So imagining it pouring down over the head, over the face. Noticing how easy breath comes as the muscles of the face start to release and relax. Noticing if we're clenching the jaw, if so, maybe releasing the biting surfaces of the mouth. Letting it move down through the neck and the throat. Feeling that relaxation spreading downward. Beginning to notice the shoulders. And as that light continues to pour down through the shoulders, letting it weigh them down, letting the shoulders be heavy, letting them fall away from the ears. Spilling down over the shoulders into the arms, the elbows, forearms, and hands. Noticing if we're clenching our hands. If so, maybe releasing, letting the fingertips be open. Bringing our attention back towards the heart space. Noticing the warm light covering the heart space, sinking down into the low back. Noticing the sensations we feel in these areas and feeling them begin to release and relax as we continue downward through the ribs, through the belly and low back, noticing the hips and pelvis, letting the warm light continue down, releasing muscles in these areas. Moving down through the thighs, through the knees, the lower legs, into the ankles, the warmth pouring through the top of the feet, down into the heels, into the soles of the feet, through the arch, and all the way up to the toes. Maybe taking another deep inhale, filling the body with air, and on our exhale, releasing anything we don't need to hold. Letting it just be washed away as the warm light settles over us like a blanket. Comforting, warm, relaxing, allowing us to simply be as we are in this moment. When we're ready, we'll slowly begin to come back to the breath, noticing our inhale and exhale, allowing that warmth to sink deep into the bones with each exhale. Knowing that we can carry this relaxation and comfort with us, and that we can tap into it anytime we need with a bit of intention and breath. If we're comfortable where we are, we can feel free to stay here. But if we like, we can start to introduce a little bit of movement back into the body, maybe wiggling through the fingers, through the toes, maybe nodding the head yes or no. Taking any little movements and stretches that feel good in our body. If we're reclined and we would like to, we can maybe slowly begin to roll onto our right or left side. Maybe bringing the knees up towards the body, resting our head on our arm. Taking a few breaths. And when we're ready, maybe slowly beginning to blink the eyes open. And whenever we're ready, if we choose, coming to a seated position. Again, if you're comfortable where you are, you can feel free to stay there. When I shut down the meeting, it will shut down for everyone. But from wherever we are, maybe taking 3 breaths together. We can have our hands at heart center or anywhere against the body that feels good. Taking a moment to thank ourselves for our practice today, for making this space for ourselves to find rest. And I'd like to thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. It really does mean the world. I hope you have a wonderful evening. If anyone has any questions, I'll be here for the next few minutes. Thank you.